Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
and we are back again today to talk none other than Zack Snyder's Justice League. And before we get into all the juicy details for that, make sure you go to our YouTube.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was making a joke.
Yours is more important than us plugging the channel. Go on.
I was just to say it's going to be a 4 hour and 5 minute review. Is what I was going to say. I'm just, but
there you go.
Yeah, not worth it.
Yeah, buckle up, baby. No, but seriously though, if you haven't already, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe. Hit that notification bell, the way up to down all future episodes of Podcast 2 for 1. Of course, all the cool content we have at 2 for 1 Studios, like 2 for 1 Collectors, 2 for 1 Backflash, and of course, we have some other neat little things coming up, hopefully in the next couple months.
In the next very Daniel, soon.
Maybe, yeah, who knows? Don't even know. Zack Snyder's Justice League, we did it. We got here.
We did it. You're right. We did this.
We did it. It's all us.
We were responsible. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I used the hashtag once, I think. You're welcome.
So it's been a long journey. Of course, we broke down the whole 5 movie arc.
Yeah,
a couple
great
months
episode.
Ago,
you should go check that out. Episode. Yes, it's a great
episode.
And
what's interesting is that now they put out basically an exhibit in Dallas that kind of blueprints the first initial 5 movie arc. Before Warner Brothers tampered with it after BVS come out before Joss Whedon. And we were pretty close. We were probably about 80-90% accurate in the broad stroke of things.
I would be interested to remember the things we weren't accurate about, or that
I wouldn't say accurate. I would say there was a lot of little details that were kind of fleshing things out that kind of added more context. But I think on the broader stuff, we were pretty close.
It feels like we were like right on the money. I mean, if you go back and watch that episode and you talk through what the arc of Justice League into Nightmare Universe Justice League movie or whatever, like that's exactly kind of what we saw what it felt like to me.
Yeah, it was close. There was some things, but overall we pretty much hit it on the head. Broad strokes. Anyway, let's talk this movie. Let's talk Zack Snyder Justice League. And of course, if you don't know the whole release the Snyder Cut movement, just real quick.
Where have you been hiding?
Where have you been hiding? It's literally trended every day. It's trended every day on Twitter for
I don't think you can be like
3 months.
I don't think you can be like a fan of entertainment, like movies and streaming, and not be aware of it. It feels like it's kind of saturated the whole that side of entertainment. Just not only because it's a big superhero movie and it's got this cult following that turned into this giant kind of grassroots campaign to bring it back, but it's also kind of like that. I feel like it's even like at a meta level, it's kind of this like, oh my God, a director got to like finish his vision for a film after it was released in theater. It's just kind of this anomaly kind of situation. And it's getting released on it's like, it's this anomaly that is almost like a sign of the changing of the times too. It feel kind of the, like with Wonder Woman coming to HBO Max day one, like those kinds of things, like this feels like a continuation of like those trends. And it's just, even outside of the movie, whatever you think of the movie, and we'll get to, I want to dish our opinions on it very soon, just high level, but
yeah, 100%.
It's just kind of incredible that it happened at all, and fascinating and intriguing. And it brings up all these questions about the future of, production studio director relationships and just platforms for streaming and just all these kinds of things. It's kind of taking the entertainment world by storm, and for good reason.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into it. I mean, you can't deny, and outside of this, no matter what our opinion is on the movie or Zack Snyder or just anything in general, there is an aspect of it, AFSP, which is American Foundation Suicide Prevention. This specific group of people, they have the people who a lot of them who have been shepherding the release of Snyder Cut. They have turned that into this American Foundation Suicide Prevention. They've raised over almost close to $1 million, for that, awesome. And that's, so, every time there was a live stream, there was, they had Zach on, whatever, they would have my people donate. I mean, the Rock shared it last week. I mean, it was kind of getting, pick up steam. There's even an Easter egg in the movie on one of the billboards.
Oh, that's cool.
So all these things, and if you don't know, it's because during production, at the very end, Zack Snyder lost his adoptive daughter, Autumn, and that's why the movie, it says for Autumn, and she took her own life. And at the very end, there's the rendition of Hallelujah plays, which is her favorite song, which we also saw in the trailers that were released last fall. So there's a big connection there, a personal connection for Snyder, not only just on a creative level, but on a hugely personal level for him and Deborah, his wife / producer. And it's a victory into itself that the movie got made. So people should be happy that they got it. And but let's get into the movie itself.
Yeah.
I want to hear your general impressions, Daniel.
Okay. I've been thinking about this a lot. So overall, I think this is a fun movie to watch. I think it has got some really fun character interactions and moments. I think it is galaxies better than Whedon's cut, in my opinion. I've seen some people being like, I wasn't that much better. I'm like, were you watching the same movie? Because I don't get that. Like characters actually have motivations and arcs here.
Yeah.
And things are explained. If, yes, it is kind of crammed into these exposition packed montage sequences, but there is exposition and there's understanding and all that to say, it's not a perfect movie. Zack Snyder has some very interesting ideas on how to, or some techniques on how he uses music and his use of slow motion. I mean, there's times where this feels like a music video and not in a good way, in a way that feels kind of like manufactured emotional response. And so I feel like I think there's fair criticisms of it. I don't think it is. It still, to me, doesn't really hold a candle to anything Marvel that I can think of. Maybe Thor: Dark World, but honestly, I need to rewatch that because it's been like 12 years.
You think it's not? You don't think it's better than Thor: The Dark World? I
don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't know. Like if it's more of an enjoyable movie.
It has to be. I mean.
I think you're right, but I haven't seen Thor: The Dark World.
It has to be just based on who's in the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, you have just by proxy of having Batman. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. I'll get into it. It is a cooler movie, but is it a better movie? Anyway,
that's an argument.
I think. I think it's totally worth watching. I think it's. I wish I could see what's next. Honestly, I would love to. I think the nightmare stuff, that stuff was some of my favorite parts of all of it. And it did kind of feel though a little bit like dangling a carrot in front of you that you're never gonna get, especially in the prologue, where it's like
the epilogue.
Was it epilogue? Where it's like giving you all this, where you're like, it's all just set up for the next arc, but it's awesome and cool and creepy and weird and love it. But anyway, yes, I think it's a great film. I think it's flawed as fuck, and it's still totally worth watching.
I whenever I watch Justice League, and keep in mind, everyone, it's unhealthy how much I watch these movies over and over again. I've seen Man of Steel at least 15 times. I've seen BVS the same amount or more. I've seen Joss Whedon's Justice League an unhealthy amount of times. I'm in it to win it. I watch it over and over and over again. I can find. I saw Green Lantern 5 times in theaters. Um, so if and just in theaters, so
It's like it's like $150 in theater tickets almost.
I worked at the theater, so it helped.
Okay.
I didn't pay for the tickets. And which reminds me, go to our YouTube channel. You can maybe watch how would Zack Snyder's Green Lantern, what would that look like?
Yes.
And we have a video we made that kind of touches on that.
I'm surprised we didn't get more angry comments because we totally posted that like as if it was just a trailer, like we were reposting.
Oh, 100%. It looks real. It looks like it's a real thing.
It does.
But so that all being said, like I eat this stuff up almost. It don't matter if it's good or bad or X, Y, and Z. And when I watched Justice League in 2017, I saw it 5 times. I saw it also 5 times in theaters. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed just seeing these characters, and I totally saw the mustache gate and saw all these bad things. Barry's, that's not the Barry that I want to see, and that's the humor, and why is Ben Affleck doing this, and all these other choices, and Steppenwolf looks awful, and all these other things.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't remember what he looked like, but I saw a side by side, and I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, it looks like much better."
Looks like a PS2 video game character,
or cosplayer. Yeah,
but it's one of those things. I have some rose-colored glasses and a lot of things. I'm just so happy that I'm getting to see these characters at all that I have a lot of leeway. I'm basically this generation's Kevin Smith, but that being said, I 100% can sit there and look at it analytically and from a structure and a plot perspective and character motivations, all these other things, and really break it down on a very well level. So I've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League 3 times now, basically 3.5 probably.
So 12 hours.
3.5, so like 14 hours.
15.
Yeah, 15. Yeah, something close to that.
14,
so I've spent some time with it, so
yes.
it's not counting just the times I've just watched scenes here and there. Like even I spent 40 minutes just before we got on just watching random scenes. Because I'm fascinated by just the stuff and X, Y, and Z. I enjoy the movie. I do. I think it's a better movie, obviously, than Justice League. It has to be by proxy being consistent and proxy of
the tone.
The tone is consistent. X, Y, and Z. I'll say this: if you don't like Zack Snyder as a filmmaker, you're not going to like this movie. It is 100% Zack Snyder's Justice League. He has these indulgent slow-mo. We have all these other things. I'll say this, that I think there is probably a great 3 hour and 20-minute version in there. Right now it's 4 hours and 2 minutes. There was moments when I watched it the first time, I was watching it and I was like, like as an editor, we edit movies and we edit this stuff and everything else. I can feel a cut coming. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm watching something, even for the first time, I'm just like, it's almost like you're just like cut in your head,
It's a rhythm.
And And I'm sitting there and, watching, all of a sudden it's like, you feel like, oh, it's going to happen. And then it doesn't happen. And you're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, and there's so many reaction shots that they could have cut, like they probably could have shaved off a second or two. And that's a lot of time, or 3 seconds. 3 seconds for a reaction shot's a long time. Yeah. And there's some flow issues, that kind of stuff. But all that being said, I enjoy it. I think it's a fun movie and it's got a lot of cool stuff in it, especially if you're a DC fan. But yeah, I kind of want to start breaking down some things. Let's talk about the act structure and the runtime. So how do you feel about it being broken up into chapters?
It was fine. I mean, the thing is, it didn't feel like a movie as much as it felt like I don't know. The chapters, it almost had this kind of miniseries feeling, but not too. I think the miniseries feeling, because it did kind of break it into, I don't know if it would, I would call it probably more of a sequence movie, more like each chapter was a string of sequences. And obviously, I mean, like Superman being awoken is probably, if you wanted to try to break it into 3 or 4 acts, I'm sure it's there. But to me, it felt more like just a bunch of sequences that just kept building. And kind of.
there's a lot that happens. It's almost like
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying though. But it feels like the sequences don't always just the sequences. I don't feel like there's a strong like cause and effect roller coaster. You know what I'm saying? Like eventually we get there a little bit, but in the beginning it's just kind of these like it almost feels like montage where we're just like popping over here, something happens, popping over here, something happens, but they're not really related. Direct, like
no,
they're not directly related.
The first 2 hours, which is about the first 3 chapters, 3.5 chapters, it's really just it feels like 12 different sequences, and then those are edited like a montagey way.
Yes.
And it's kind of crazy actually.
And I think to me it lends to this feeling of this would have been better either of two ways. And like you said, maybe a 3.5 hour movie, 3-hour movie, or an 8-episode miniseries, like a even longer, like take a little more time. Because I think what it felt like was they're trying to cram the amount of character development and backstory that you would typically get through like a long season of television into a 4-hour movie experience kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like it felt like, and I think we've talked about this, or this is kind of a known or a common opinion, I would say, is that they should have taken, there should have been at least one more movie before we got here to set up some of these characters before this movie. Like we should have had an Aquaman origin story, a Cyborg origin story. We should have had, I mean, maybe you can introduce one of them. Maybe you want to introduce Barry Allen. I don't care, but like you're trying to set up 3 new characters that all have very important pivotal roles and very different motivations and very different backstories and just all of these things that it just feels like rushed and none of them had enough time.
Do they have motivation?
Yeah, I mean, like, yes, in the sense of, or they try to, I guess. I mean, Cyborg has motivation to.
Yes.
I mean, they have motivation in like stopping the world from ending, right? I mean, like that's the overall motivation.
Sure, and I guess I should say, what do they learn? Or we'll get to that and stuff in a second. I've got some.
I don't think they learn I don't know if they learn a thing. Movie.
No, I think the one character that it probably could have got away with that with, obviously, is Cyborg, because he's inherently tied to the mother boxes and tied to what's happening. Like his and he's the one we get the most backstory on.
And I don't know, and I'll just on Cyborg. I didn't love that he was like a cyborg, like he was created from the mother box. That wasn't that good to me. I don't know why. That just didn't feel cool as much as it would have been if he was just kind of like from the comics, like created from technology. And also like the whole scene where his dad's like showing him his powers, I thought was not good.
Where he's listening to the recording for the first time.
And like when he's on the rooftop and he's transferring money to some random ass lady's account.
I like that.
And
it's like, was fun.
It was just kind of like, wait. So why did your dad think giving an emotionally unstable college student the keys to every nuclear arm on the planet was a good idea? And what government would not fucking hunt this guy down because of this? All of them.
Well, to answer those two things, they say it clearly, just to not to start defending the movie, but Silas Stone didn't know what was possible when he does this. And even Victor says that he's messing with alien technology. All he cares about is bringing his son back. Through that, he gets the keys to the kingdom. And then it's implied that Cyborg is basically the god of ones and zeros, right? So he has the ability, and that's an easy to me explainable thing where, is the government on his ass? Probably not. If you're that powerful with technology, then the government can't find you if you don't want to be found.
Yeah, you know? I mean, sure, I get it. I mean, it felt like they overpowered it. Like it just felt like, oh, then why didn't you send every nuke to just go blow up the fucking guy? Chernobyl's already irradiated. Just send all the nukes. I mean, like that. Could have been like a plan A, and then plan B is we revive Superman and start off the nightmare.
Well,
universe.
Technically, at the end they say it's not radiated anymore because he sucks up all the radiation through Steppenwolf, the Unity takes up all the radiation because they say, isn't irradiated? And they say, not anymore because of X, Y, and Z.
But the explosions would have done something, I'm sure.
What explosions?
Not just from the nuclear bombs.
What? No, but I'm saying if he if he had sent nuclear weapons, he would have been making the place radiated again. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, but he would have been destroying everything before that. Like, it would have been annihilated and melted away, and then it would have been irradiated again.
I guess I don't think.
Anyway,
I don't think we're locking up. Let's talk. Okay.
I think it's just the cyborg. He just felt he was super emo the whole time.
I kind of almost enjoy the Joss Whedon cyborg, his personality better in that one. You probably don't have a reference for it anymore, but I feel like he's a little. He still has a chip on his shoulder, but he's a little more likable in that one. He seems like he's more. And I'm not talking about the booyah stuff, which I actually enjoy because I'm a comic friend.
I'm fine with the booyah.
Yeah, and everyone shits on it, but I'm like, I'm okay with it because it's cool. I mean, whatever. But I think he's good in that. I think he has a chip on his shoulder, but he also has like this likable whatever. But he's kind of mean the whole time in Justice League. I mean, again, he's got a chip on his shoulder. I get it, but I'm not quite sure we have a moment in Justice League where he at the end. Well, at the end, when you obviously get things where you obviously sympathize with him, but whenever he pulls the motherboxes apart, he says, "I'm not broken and I'm not alone." But I'm like, but yes, you are. You have people, like-minded individuals around you, but I don't really feel. I don't feel that they're making a family connection. I don't feel like they got that part with him yet. I feel more so with Barry than I did with
yes.
Barry felt like, he was part of the team. Like he was, making friends, like he says,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Barry Allen was very enjoyable. Surprising. Like he was probably my favorite part of the movie. I think Flash was my favorite part of this whole movie.
I'm still not a fan of Ezra Miller's casting. Like I wish they wouldn't have cast him in the beginning, and then in Justice League, again, like when I watched it, I'm like, well, this is what it is. It's not the Barry Allen I want to see, but he is miles better in this version. He's
so much better.
He's still comedic relief, but he has like a little earnestness to him, and it's not like really stupid funny stuff, and he's not.
The hot
like
dog
a coward.
was like maybe the most silliness, but
I liked that.
That was funny.
Yeah,
that was funny.
There's only one moment, and I don't get into it, that I was like, that's not good humor. But I think that he's got this sweetness to him, and he's also not in Justice League. He's a coward. He is like he's afraid
Justice League.
That's what I call it. Yeah, that's what everyone calls it.
Pretty good. It's very good.
But he's he's afraid of battle. He's never fought before. All these other things, but in this one, he's right in the middle of it. He doesn't do that. He's saving people. He's got things.
Which
he's doing.
I kind of did like that part in Josh Whedon's one of him being like, I did like the that one scene I can remember where he's talking to Bruce and Batman, and he's like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, and he said just save one of them. Right. Sure. I liked that. Like that felt cool because that felt like mentorship and development and character growth. But
also keep this in mind. At that point in time, Suicide Squad had already come out beforehand.
What happened?
Right?
Sorry?
Suicide Squad. In Suicide Squad, he stops a bank robbery and he stops Captain Boomerang.
Barry Allen does?
Yeah,
he's in Suicide Squad?
He's in one shot, yeah. And it's a good scene. No idea. So because Captain Boomerang is one of his big enemies. And and so it makes no sense why he clearly has been fighting people. And also, when you're wearing a superhero costume and you've built a superhero costume, you've done superhero things.
True. No, that is completely fair.
And anyway,
and he has a lair, with a big computer.
Yeah, which is but anyway. So I think he's much better in this. And let's talk about. We kind of skipped over a few things, but let's talk about the team. We talked about Flash. I think he's much better. Of course, him going back in time is awesome at the end, and reversing things. We can talk about the plot here in a second.
Yeah.
Let's go through the characters. So let's talk about Aquaman. Aquaman, he was more dude bro in Justice League, but here now he's a little more reserved. He's got that, he's definitely the hardcore, I'm not your daddy's Aquaman, which again I'm not a fan of.
No.
But for the tone of the movie, he works. He's an outsider, and then he gets more backstory with Volko and Mara. And it kind of paints more where he's at. It makes more. All of that makes more sense than Justice League. But him as a character, he was kind of stealing things, or in Justice League, he had some relatable things actually in that. But I think his acting's better in this version. Like he's got some good scenes in it. Like I like whenever him and Barry are trying on the hats. I like whenever.
Yeah.
I love the moment where Barry kind of calls him out on like with Cyborg, and he's like, you don't like him or you don't care about him, and he's like, I never said that. That's a great moment.
That was his best moment in any movie any of the DC movies.
Yeah, I think Justice League is his best acting ever. And we watched Aquaman recently. Like look at Justice League and then look at Aquaman.
It's Aquaman was painful.
He's kind of like Arnold, where you give him certain lines of dialogue and you give him little, and he can work with it better than giving him a whole script.
Yes, but I don't think he can anchor a film like Arnold can. Arnold had this star power.
Well, sure, I'm not. Yeah,
like to me.
I'm not arguing that. I obviously agree with that. I'm not arguing with that. I'm just giving you an example. Yeah.
Sure. No, and I think you're on track. I think for me, watching Aquaman and now this, and Aquaman was like a couple weeks ago, not long. I've decided that Jason Momoa just isn't that great of an actor at all. I think he can play a good role. And I think he works in this movie because he's kind of a B character or C character. Like he's part of the Justice League, but he's not that important as much as the other characters are to any of the plot.
He doesn't do anything. Yeah.
The main thing I think is he like shows up when they're like in the tunnels, when they're like kind of all first teaming
that's
up.
It. Yeah. And that's it. I mean,
and he comes in with the water.
And obviously he fights at the end, but he is strong X, Y, and Z, but he doesn't add anything to the battle that they don't have.
No, and I do think some of his scenes were really bad. When he walks into the water and those Scandinavian blonde girls walk up and start singing this weird ass song and then sniff his sweater, I was like, what in the fuck?
I was gonna get into that in a second.
Has he become like this god, like sex god of Scandinavia?
Well, let's save that. That's part of it later.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so Aquaman. Sorry. Go ahead. Let's go to the next character.
Yeah, so Wonder Woman. She is a lot more. I know she's a lot more violent in this one. She's got and that's by proxy also of making the movie rated R, and you get blood splatter. But she's a lot more ferocious in her battle, which I enjoy. This is Wonder Woman Gal Gadot, where she is still not a super strong actress yet, and there is moments where she has some okay acting, but when she gets to like the montage, it's just explain everything. Her dialogue is not very good.
No, she has good looks. I feel like she has some good like non-dialogue type expressions, and like she gives a lot. Honestly, I think she's maybe more enjoyable like when she's just giving facial reactions sometimes than when she's saying things.
I think her dialogue is worse in Justice League, but her acting is better because she's had more experience. So it's this weird thing in Justice League where she is a better actress in that movie, but her lines are not as good.
No. And then I do have to mention the music because the amount
every time she shows up.
I like the main part of the Wonder Woman theme. Like the
doom 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 doom.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's pretty badass. I like every time it comes on, I'm like, most
people like that.
It's like I think it's a great thing. It feels very like I know the Wonder Woman theme. You could probably play a lot of other superhero themes, especially even Marvel, like Thor or Iron Man's theme. I'd be like, I wouldn't be able to tell you that was either of theirs. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't know.
Yeah, well, of course.
but hers feels just very unique. But every time that like the Amazonian woman starts singing, do you remember that episode of Community where Abed makes a movie about Jesus, but then he starts playing Jesus?
Yeah.
He's making the movie about himself, and every time it goes Abed, 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 Abed. Like every time like he does something, it does like exact same like joke. And I like eventually I was like, this feels like a parody. How many times this
it's
exact
overused.
thing came in? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think the worst crime there. I got a kitty cat joining me. The worst crime there is in that when she cuts off Steppenwolf's head. So I'm like, this is not a Wonder Woman moment. This is a Justice League moment. And that kind of stuff irritates me because, I'm very finicky about how I kill bad guys.
Yes. And it just feels so generic, like kind of like that's the first kind of thing you think of when you think of like Amazonia, like kind of like that style, like Greek goddess type song kind of thing. I don't know. Like it just feels like, it feels like he pulled it straight from 300 and it would have fit in 300 fine.
Tom Hulkenberg, who is also known as Jackie XL, he did the score, and he, I've heard him say specifically, he just wanted to give her a new theme just because why not, and it's weird because, they gave her a theme in BVS, which would become her Wonder Woman theme, and then also her solo movie, and then she has a kind of a new theme from Hans Zimmer in Wonder Woman 84 on top of that last theme, and now she has a third theme, so it's just interesting that. I'm like, just stick with what works. Like build on that. Don't add new stuff, and they do use it, but they use it too much. You're right.
It's like it becomes funny. Like by the end of the movie, I'm like, I'm chuckling now.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, okay.
Let's talk Superman real quick.
Wow, he was not in the movie until like 3 hours in.
I think which is the same thing for the Justice League. I think he has less screen time in this than he does in Justice League, which is interesting. I say I think. I know he has less screen time, which is interesting.
Here's the thing. I love Henry Cavill. I love him as Superman. I think he is a great Superman. Like when he gets that kind of like, oh, I'm pissed off now, Superman. Yeah. Oh, buddy, that look he gives is like that kind of snarl, eyebrow raise, like it's like, oh fuck, that's Superman.
Yeah,
right there.
like whenever he punches Steppenwolf and then he like does his like I'm fixing to shoot up in the sky. His face looks awesome. But
so
there's something interesting is like whenever he shows up. Okay, first of all, we're talking about the final battle. There's moments in the final battle, I'm like, Henry, are you not acting? Like his face and stuff, it looks like he's just like, it's the most like
blank face.
Yeah. And I was kind of blown away by it. It's almost like it's either he's so confident that I don't know. There's some interesting things. There's some moments.
Was it in like group shots?
No, it's when he's like by himself, like basically when he's lasering Steppenwolf and a few other things. I'm like, Henry Cavill, what are you doing right now? It kind of blew my mind. And
I would assume that's direction, but
and also some of the laser effects are not finished. Like they don't look as good as they do in BVS, and which is kind of a theme throughout the movie. Some of the visual effects, of course, aren't finished, but
honestly, I didn't really notice it.
Yeah, I'll say this: that what was interesting in Justice League was. Wonder Woman and Aquaman had some reservations about resurrecting him, and she didn't want to do it. And it's handled much better in this. Of course, they almost all universally agree to resurrecting.
It did feel a little bit like, it's just kind of that like, wait a minute, this box resurrects things. What could we resurrect? Are y'all thinking what I don't know. I really
liked it. It's much, you gotta, and part of it is too, one thing difficult about this movie is that now we have 3 years with Justice League. We're always comparing it to that. So I would love to have seen this movie with no context of the other one.
Right. Yeah, me too.
Because then I could have saw it and like made my own opinions about it. But now I'm like, well, this is good because it's better than that. But is it good on its own? So
good is if we're defining good as entertaining, not boring, keeping my attention.
Sure.
I'm having fun.
Yeah.
I would say it's good on all those levels. Yeah. I'm like, it's a good, like I really wish I could have seen this in the IMAX, honestly. Like, like this would have been a really fun movie in IMAX to watch.
Of course.
So
his resurrection scene is played much better. Of course, we get more action. You know, all that stuff is fun. It's pretty close to the Josstice League, but at the end when Martha, Kent, and everything. And of course, Lois is pregnant now. Did you catch that?
What?
When she opens up one of the dressers, she's got her pregnancy test.
Yeah, wait, I remember that. Yes, but then we were trying to figure out.
Well, then at the end of the movie, whenever Lois and Martha Kent are walking into the house, she's carrying a basket, like a bassinet or whatever it's called, like a baby basket.
Is it like the flash forward or something?
No, whenever Bruce is like, I bought the bank, she's and one thing that's interesting in Josstice League, it's the exact same shot, but she's carrying in U-Haul boxes. They visual effects out the baskets.
Damn.
So because they didn't want her to be pregnant.
So wait,
and on top of that,
how much time existed between Superman dying and
not much time,
the events of this happening?
Not much time at all.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, because the boxes are awoken, and then Steppenwolf's on it pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so, keep this in mind. Zack Snyder said in interviews recently, like, yeah, one of the reasons why he snaps out of it is because he senses the baby inside Lois, and he decides, and that's how he snaps back to kind of realizing who he is. Which I wish he would have. If that's the case, if that's the case, then I feel like he should have looked at her belly or something. You know what I'm saying? Like that would have been a nice beat. You know, like I'm going to be a father or something.
Yeah.
It's a little less clear there. But
like X-ray vision, and there's 2 heartbeats or something.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, he can hear it or something. At the very end, Bruce says congratulations to Clark, and part of it is he's talking about getting the house back, but I'm pretty sure he's talking about being a dad. He goes, oh yeah, by the way, congratulations, because Lois is carrying a basket, like a baby basket.
Gotcha.
Yeah, interesting, huh?
But that's where I get a little confused on what we talked about originally about plot going forward, because I thought we had talked about this idea of
Bruce and
Lois.
Well,
they have a baby.
You got to keep in mind, there's the 5-movie arc, and that was what they were going to do, right? And which is interesting because Jim Lee drew on it, and Jeff Johns, who's the one who everyone blames now for changing everything, he's the one who actually wrote that on the board. It was Zach and Chris's story, but Jeff Johns physically wrote it on the board, which is interesting. So that was the 5-movie arc. They shot BVS. They were prepping for Justice League. And then the reaction to BVS changed the story to Justice League, which become Zack Snyder's Justice League.
So the original was Bruce and Lois. Okay.
And then so that they took that out. They didn't like Bruce and Lois. We got Zack Snyder's Justice League. Then that got canned. We got Josstice League. So anyway, there was an original, but now there's a new. So if they wanted to make sequels, it would be different than that 5-movie arc we talked about. But here's the thing, it's slightly different. And here's the thing, Zach came out lately. He's like, yeah, the idea now, instead of it being Lois and Bruce's son, like the original, the idea now is that it's going to be Lois and Superman's son. And then he would take on the mantle of being Batman, which I'm like.
But he's going to have kryptonite power, like Kryptonian powers?
He's going to have no powers. He's going to be just a human. Which in my head, I'm like, yeah, but I don't think Batman would ever want anyone to be Batman. Like, obviously he's training people, but it's because these people have trauma. Like, you don't want someone who's being Batman's almost like a curse. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to wish that on somebody. It's a death wish.
If you take it to the human level of literally, if you were, anyone that was literally doing what Batman was doing would be in mental health crises. If we're bringing it to the real world level. I
mean, the comics deal with this every year. I mean, this is the comics. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, Superman is, of course, the black suit is cool. It makes no sense. It doesn't. They
don't explain it.
No. And that's because they told him no, and he shot it in a way where he could color it later. And then now that he's got creative control, he just made it black. But then it's like, you could always argue he's going to go back to red and blue in Justice League 2 because he has to before he goes bad, because in the nightmare sequences, he's wearing red and blue.
That's true. Which I almost just wish they would keep him in black.
I know.
I don't know.
Because
like black seems more appropriate.
I mean, you associate black with bad typically.
Yeah.
And but his reasoning is, it's closer to his Kryptonian legacy. He's wearing that's just bullshit. Yeah. Director explaining stuff. That's not real. He did it because he thought it was cool. Yes. And the easy answer was you use the comics and you say he is still kind of weak from being come back to life. Dead. And he needs to recharge his body, and its suit helps recharge his body.
And he kind of does that still. He like flies up and feels the sun on him, and like
that's what I'm saying. You could have easily they had Kurt Russell and Russell Crowe come back for VO, for a little bit of VO. You could have had that in there, like choose this suit for X, Y, and Z. Anyway, that's just the example of whatever. Here's Batman. All the humor is gone, the shitty humor from Josstice League.
Yes.
And Ben Affleck has this really great, earnest take on Batman, and I love it. I mean, he's great in it. He is great in it.
I agree. He feels like
he
really
Batman.
Is trying to atone for what he did. And that feels really good. Like, that feels like, it feels like, you kind of deserve it because of the events of BVS, or kind of like what your hand was in that. And I think it also just feels good. Like this, Zack Snyder's Batfleck is a very different Batman. I mean, he kills people. He brands criminals.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. They all kill people, but they do it in a movie way. This is an intentional way to paint the character a certain way, that's why it's bad. So
yes.
Yeah.
And so I think it works. Especially, I'm right now. I'm thinking of mainly that scene at the end with Joker. I don't know if you want to get into that right now, but like his scene with Jared Leto.
Yeah.
I just think there's a consistency with him this time that feels good and feels real, and it feels like, okay, this is like, I feel like it feels like a real character. It feels like a well thought out.
Yeah. And I love his. I even like talking to Alfred. He's like, I have faith, Alfred. Like when they get on the flying fox, he's like, I have faith. And the way he delivers it, it's like, it feels so good. It just feels like this is a Batman that's hopeful, but he's also going to get shit done. And I love it. And it makes me a little sad because I'm glad we got it, but I'm like, man, BVS. I still have a huge problem with Batman killing. I think it's just the antithesis of the character. And I just don't. I think we've talked about this in another podcast, which you should go find if you haven't listened to already. It would have been so much stronger if he hadn't killed anybody, and he was going to cross that line with Superman,
or if like he had never killed anybody, and he was going to cross that line with Superman, he never does. But then like maybe Nightmare version of Batman is like
100%.
Like that would be like, okay, I agree. This makes sense. Yeah. Like Nightmare version of Batman is like a fucking psychopath murderer. Cool.
Yeah. Whenever you have Batman come out of that trailer and like the vehicle trailer, and he's shooting people in the nightmare sequence in BVS, and he has a gun, that should be shocking. And that should be, and it should be, it's earned because you're like, well, there's fucking Mad Max desert. You know what? I want to give Batman a pass. This is end of the world shit.
Yeah, it's like you do this or the world, like it's like he's fighting for the existence of humanity.
Exactly.
So whenever you care,
but when you prep him with he's a killer, that doesn't have as much of an impact anymore. It's not a character change, and also if you have Superman kill Zod in Man of Steel, you have the character who has killed somebody and learned from it. Now you have the character who hasn't killed anyone, and he's on that precipice. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And also, again, it just doesn't explain why he hasn't killed the Joker. It makes no sense. He should be if the Joker killed Robin and burnt down Wayne Manor, like we know now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then Joker should have been the first person that Batman would have went after, and it would have been over quickly.
If he's killing people, yeah.
It makes no sense. Anyway.
I agree. I think what is almost good and frustrating about this is that like Batfleck's great in this, and it would lead so well into the next film and seeing him deal with failure of like he tried to fix it all and he still failed and everything still went to shit, and him having to deal with that and go back in time and sacrifice himself. I really want to see that. Like, that sounds awesome.
Well, but even then, like, think about this. At the time, they were prepping for, and we got a tease for it, Batman solo movie with Ben Affleck, and he was going to fight Deathstroke. And how cool would it have been to have, again, you know, you have Batman in the perfect universe, he wouldn't have killed anyone.
Yeah.
And then you have Joker come back, and Batman's dealing with Robin's death now, and Deathstroke is hitting his family because now he knows who he is, and then Joker's also involved. And then he's being pushed again. You know what I'm saying? Like, but now it's like, well, why doesn't Batman just kill Deathstroke? You have Deathstroke who will kill Batman, and Batman who won't kill Deathstroke. I mean, it adds a dynamic to it. There's just certain things that you shouldn't mess with because it's okay if you're going to mess with it, but it just, when it starts affecting plot, it becomes an issue.
Yes.
You could have your
Agreed.
own take, but okay. I think he's great. I think he's much better overall.
I think he's the best character of the film. Him and Barry, I think, are my favorites of the film. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the slow-mo.
Let's talk about it in slow motion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that stylistically, it's not only that the slow-mo was bad and overused. And that's what I mean by bad. I mean, it was overused, and
the shots are beautiful.
It's the songs that would come on and would just ruin it. Like,
I'll say
the
this,
Aquaman song. No, like,
it's
just,
not a cool song.
The king, or like some folk. I don't even know what the fuck song that was. Some song from Zach's childhood that no one else fucking knows. Who was that band? Who was that song? No one knows. It's not popular. And then, it was, and then just the lyrics are just so on the nose that it's just like, it's like Zach at times. At times, Zach has the inability to use subtlety. It's like, there are times when it just goes away, and he has no concept of.
Sometimes he's so
subtext.
subtle. Sometimes he's so subtle you don't know what's happening, and then sometimes he is so in your face. You're like, oh my god!
Can this be a little more subtext and a little less? A little less.
It's wild.
And then the song too with when Barry Allen's doing the
I like Barry's song. I like that one. Actually, I think it's very sweet. Actually.
It's sweet, but it's like, if that was the only time it happened, sure, I could maybe agree with you there. But it's a recurring, like, stylistic choice that then becomes like, oh my god, again. And honestly, it was way cooler of a scene with Barry. Like, he's breaking the glass. Like, the slow motion makes sense for him because he's the fucking Flash, and you can't see him unless you go into slow motion.
And we were prepped with a little bit of a romance, so that song kind of tied a little bit more better. But this kind of adds also to the folks women singing for Aquaman. It's like, first of all, you're watching it, and you're like, oh, okay, and then it just never ends.
No,
you're oh my god,
and then you're like, okay, and then they come in with a fucking harmony
verse.
part. The harmony, like the other girls join in, they're doing harmonies, and it doesn't sound very good to me. Like, it didn't sound pleasant to me. I don't know. It just didn't sound like it sounded. Oh, it just sounded like they were trying to like inject this like kind of character, like this interesting kind of character into this like micro society that Aquaman is helping out in wherever they are, and they were trying to kind of make it feel more interesting and like a little like build the world a little bit there, and it just comes off like, okay, especially when she sniffs the sweater, I'm like, that felt sexual. And now I'm like,
well, it feels very God worshipy, like you're our savior, very kind of thing.
Yes.
And I brought that up so I knew you would say that, so I could say this was that here's something I kind of inherently have a problem with Zack Snyder's take on these characters. I understand. Here's why Marvel was successful over DC was because Marvel was people were humans who were turned into godlike figures
Yes.
because
Yeah.
they were
And they still
were,
retained their human issues.
they retained their humanity, and it was always like elevating status and X, Y, and Z, and you cared about the human character. Zach's take on it, and I'll say this: DC, yes, people always say they're gods because you have the Flash, who's the fastest man alive. You have Superman, who is the strongest being on the planet. You have Aquaman, who's also incredibly strong in X, Y, and Z.
They're closer to gods than a lot of the Marvel superheroes. Like, I mean, Thor, but like, you know, like Spider-Man isn't the god of New York in the way that Aquaman feels like the king of the sea.
Yeah,
Superman feels like
but there's
the king of the world, and
it's a thing that I think people lean in too much. There is, for every Marvel character, there's a DC counterpart, and vice versa.
Yeah.
True. And
But
Zach's take on this is these people are mythological figures and they're godlike figures. And I understand that concept, but I think it's the wrong way of going about this. I think that there's no comic where you don't relate to these characters. I mean, these people have issues. You know, you're making them people worship Aquaman because he's this savior figure. You have people all the Christ symbolism with Superman.
Yep.
And he is a Christ figure. Don't get me wrong. Like he was in the comics, he was at a time he was made. Of course, there's symbolism there.
Of course.
You know, he's making them almost not unrelatable, but I don't know, the way he does it is it's like
I think
you're
right
looking up at him. You're looking up at him, and the thing was, by virtue of them wanting to have their cake and eat it too, which we said this even with Josstice League, is that yes, we're getting much more in a 4-hour cut. We're getting backstory on these people, but even then, we still don't know these people.
The backstory isn't great that we're getting. I mean, for the most part, like the backstory is, yes, we're getting them, and that helps because I actually like know who I'm looking at and what they want more ish.
I mean, do you know?
But they're just not that interesting.
Do you know how Barry got his powers?
No, that's true. Yeah, we don't even do anything with him, do we?
At the time, Wonder Woman had come out, so we do know Wonder Woman's backstory. We know.
True. I mean,
people
Batman
typically,
Superman, obviously.
Everyone
Batman's
knows that
backstory is like unknown, but they did that again too.
They did it in BVS.
They did it again.
Now, Aquaman, you don't know. You do pick up a little bit of who this guy is, but the thing is,
you get a hint. You basically, they said like your mom left to save your life, they would have killed you or something.
That's true, but we're getting a version of Aquaman that's not interesting.
No, he's boring as hell.
You know what I'm saying? Like the interesting version of Aquaman in a Justice League movie is the version where he's king and he uses the oceans as a weapon.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So they're manufacturing to choose this point in his life to go ahead and get him in the Justice League so they can basically dampen his powers and to just have him on the team because they want a movie. You know what I'm saying?
Want Jason Momoa.
Yeah. Because of course, and this is Zach's thing, is that Aquaman's not cool and no one was clamoring for Aquaman X, Y, and Z. And it's like, this is fucking Spider-Man's a goddamn spider. He sticks on a fucking wall.
You know how you make them cool is you write interesting characters and you cast them well and get good actors.
I've said this for a long time. Yeah. No character is bad. It's just bad storytelling. You know, you can make any character good. And so it's just, it's a fundamental thing. I think one of the big problems with the movie, and again, I enjoy it. I've seen it a lot. I'm going to see it more times down the line. Yeah. Is that this is just wasn't the right take for these characters, and it wasn't the right way to do it.
Yeah, no, I feel like this movie feels like more of an alternate universe than, or in the DCU, the Snyderverse feels more like an alternate universe to reality than like the MCU does. The MCU a lot of times feels like the real world with superheroes in it. And I feel like it feels like normal humans, but but they have extra. Like it feels like Tom Holland feels like a high school student. You know what I mean? Like these, you feel like you knew Tom Holland's in high school. You know what I
But
mean?
you
Like,
also felt like you knew the world that in which what was at stake. I mean,
Yeah.
look at BVS and Justice League. You know, after Man of Steel, everyone cried because all of the destruction, and they had a knee-jerk reaction for 2 movies after that. Like, granted,
Yeah.
I didn't have a huge problem with Man of Steel destruction. You have a Kryptonian,
No.
and you have another team of Kryptonians, and you have someone who doesn't really use their powers a lot yet, and then a lot of bad guys trying to destroy the whole
Yeah.
world. Shit's gonna happen.
Yeah,
And they end up-
I'm
and they-
fine with, like, I feel like
Well, they-
that's part of Superman's kind of that happens all the time.
Yeah,
Big
but you know
bad
what?
guys come to Metropolis and throw them into buildings.
Yeah,
You know what I
and
mean? Like,
I think that was a visual representation of what would happen. And you know what was great was that we saw boots on the ground, people being saved by Superman.
Mhm.
In BVS, in real life, they took a reaction to it, and so they made the final battle happen on a remote dock
Yeah.
where there's no survivors or no casualties, which is fine. But then they took it another step further and made the final battle, or any battle, the first battle's under Gotham Harbor where there's no civilians, and they did save 8 people at one point. But then you have the final battle in Chernobyl, the most place you can't go. There's no humans at all on the earth, and so like no one sees the Justice League do this. Look at Avengers. You have people being saved in the streets, and people are seeing this team come together.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
but you still deal with the real world hypothetical implications of that level of destruction. Like, Marvel has been letting the events of Avengers 1 reverberate since then. Like, whether that's kicking off help or like adding to the reasons like that we got Civil War and the Sokovia Accords. Like, it feels like, again, like the MCU's, I don't know, it just feels like a more realistic portrayal of a story world.
Yeah.
And it really does feel like, okay, but I could, like, it's like you could almost imagine Iron Man actually happening, like someone being that rich and that smart to do that or something. You know what I mean? Like, versus this, Cyborg does not feel like there's any version of that it feels like it could happen in the real world, or like, you know what I mean? Or like
a big comparison that even Zach is making, everyone else is making, is that this is a fantasy, that this is Lord of the Rings.
Yes. And I think that is what I'm saying. This feels more like high fantasy superhero Earth. And I think that's fine. And I think you can tell interesting stories there. I don't know how I feel about it being like the core timeline. You know what I mean? Like, I almost kind of wish this was like an alternate timeline they visit at some point, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
I agree. That's the thing. I want, you know, everyone's like, you know, there's some very vocal people in the Snyder Cut movement that
there's people that have
work.
changed their Twitter. I feel like I see it all the time. Like, anything mentioning Snyderverse, there's going to be a reply underneath it where their Twitter name is Restore the Snyderverse.
Oh yeah,
that's the full steam ahead on that train.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing is, like, these people are like, well, I watch grown-up superhero movies, and Zach says, well, I make grown-up superhero movies and all this other stuff, and like, well, Zach makes art, and Zach does this, and look, every frame he does is a painting, and everyone has these like just these, it blows my mind sometimes. I'm like,
it does.
I'm like,
because it,
and they're like, Marvel's made for kids, and I'm like, you know what, like, there was more depth and more nuance in WandaVision than anything the DCEU has even made. There was more.
God.
I almost argue there was almost more interesting in our artistic cinematography, which we haven't talked about on the podcast yet, which we will next week with our good friend Joel Williams. There is more on cinematography in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Whenever Bucky is sitting on the couch,
the angle, yeah,
and you have the trees behind him and the painting and the lighting, that's almost more interesting and artistic than anything Zach is doing.
You talking about that, like those like close high angle shots on Bucky and the therapist, kind of like looking down on their nose, and like their nose kind of like halved the frame.
Yeah,
like,
and there's even some where he's
really
like almost like a little bit of not iRobot, but it's the show with Rami Malek.
Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot, where it's like they're on the lower
Yes.
thirds,
Yeah,
and he's up, and there's so much dead, stuff like that. Like people are sitting there saying Marvel is made for kids, and yes, they have nailed comedic action, and they, and I even think sometimes they go too far. Yes,
Agreed.
but to say they're not equally or better cinematography or whatever, it's like whatever, it blows my mind. It blows my mind.
I agree. I mean, here, I'll be honest. I can criticize Marvel. Like I will never fully be okay with Thor's Fortnite scene in Endgame. The fact that Fortnite is in there like that still is just kind of stupid.
I'm okay with that.
And I'm just like, it is funny with Korg and the new Master 69. I think that is hilarious, and I just think Taika Waititi as Korg is like my favorite. I want a Korg side like miniseries where it's Korg and whatever the Blade guy is just going around like getting into like ridiculous situations on accident. But yeah, I feel like when people say that, let me say
go ahead.
When people say that, like when they start talking, oh well, Zack Snyder's an artist and every frame, like it's like it makes me feel like they don't understand what they're talking about. That's what it makes me feel like.
That's how
it makes me feel like no, and it just kind of makes it like, yes, you know what? If you put an image of a beautifully chiseled man and you splash some really pretty waves back and forth and you play a really heartfelt folksy song, you're probably going to feel some emotions and there's going to be some pretty angles in there. That doesn't mean it was artistic, like an art, like it doesn't. I feel like people are trying to argue for him as like an auteur, and I'm like, he's an auteur. He's not an auteur, he's just taking things that have been done over and over again in billions of hundreds of movies since action films, and he's marrying them with like he's taking like music video ideas and marrying them with.
I'd push back on that a little. He obviously, when you watch the movie, you're like, that's Zack Snyder, love it or hate it. I mean, he has a style.
But that, yes, but his style isn't unique. In that,
I mean, look back at 300
taking things that are
look
established and being but what I'm saying is those are stylistic choices and things that have existed. Maybe they've existed more in music videos and other things like that, but they've been around. It's not like he came up with this on his own.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Like he's. Yeah. I hear what you're saying in that. Yes, his style is particular in a similar way that almost like Fincher is very particular. But it feels like cheap auteurism. Maybe that's what I'll say. It feels like surface level auteurism. Does that make sense?
Here's why. And here's why. Like he has a visual eye. You cannot argue against that. He does.
Sure.
But here's the issue is that he doesn't have the plot and the character to back it up. That's the problem. It always has been. Yeah. It always has been. Yeah. And part of that is obviously the script. He doesn't write all the scripts, in X, Y, and Z. And there's things I like about him. But again, it's just part of it's studio mandate of we got to have our cake and eat it too. And, I still think Man of Steel is really good. I really like Man of Steel.
I do too. And I still really enjoyed the BVS extended cut, director's cut.
I do too. I enjoy it. I do.
I think there's some really cool things there.
But I'm going to ask you this. Like, you watched Aquaman, and that was like this crazy acid trip of genres. You can't deny the endings. Again, you can't deny the ending's awesome. I think it's just cool.
It's a cool battle. But
how we get there is
the most.
We watched Shazam right afterwards, right?
Yeah.
And wasn't it nice to have a movie that, yes, there was humor in it. You could say like Marvel, but I would say, Marvel didn't invent fucking humor in movies. And, but it had intent and it had purpose. The cinematography did. It didn't, to me, like, I think sometimes when you watch a movie, like I want to watch whenever Zach tells a movie, he's showing off a painting. I want to see a story.
Yes.
I want to see a story.
Yes, I agree. It feels like Zach is caught up in a different medium and trying to translate. And at times, there's that one scene with Aquaman where there's that guy on the boat and he's like about to drown in a storm. Yeah. And then like when Aquaman shows up, it's like this pan up and he's silhouetted against like the splashing of the wave. Like it looks like a full page comic book moment.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that
splash
like
page.
you could freeze that and be like, okay, that's like that could be the cover of a comic book or just one of the full page kind of really beautiful pieces of like art frames that they put in there at these big kind of like moments, like introduction, showing the character for the first time, whatever it is. It's awesome. But that scene, what was the point of it? It did, like, you could rip that out and nothing changes, right? Like it's just some random ass guy in a boat in a storm and he saves him and it's this shot and then we go somewhere else and it never gets brought up again, basically. Other than, I guess, like, is that I guess that's the guy he saves when Bruce Wayne shows up. Is that what it is? When he's he's like
Bruce Wayne's in the very beginning.
That's on him. Like he's like this, that, is that in the Aquaman movie? I'm trying to think of the one where he walks in there and he's like, whiskey, it's on him. And then he takes the bottle and he walks out.
I mean, that's the scene you're talking about.
That's this. Yeah. Okay. And then I guess that's the scene where he goes out on the dock and we get the song.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also want to note that fucking Aquaman threw a glass empty whiskey bottle into the ocean.
Yeah.
I was like, how are you going to make Aquaman this guy that doesn't take care of the ocean in an environmental way?
He says respect the storm, but then he also doesn't respect the ocean. So
it doesn't make sense to me. No, it's
because
funny.
because people don't like, because in Zach's world, people can't like a regular Aquaman. He can't be cool.
They gotta they gotta like Aquaman that gives no fucks.
And look at this. Aquaman made $1 billion. It's their biggest grossing movie of all time.
It's stupid. That I hate that because I feel like it's just gonna teach them all the wrong lessons about what's working and what's not in these movies. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're gonna get
But again, the whole thing was there is that I guess the ultimate thing to say is, real quick, the aspect ratio. This movie was not meant to be 4:3.
I think that's that contributes to that idea of like this shallow auteurism, where it's like Zach trying to be like, it's my vision and it's very particular, and if you watch it in any other version than my vision, you're not getting what you need to get out of this. And my vision has it in 4:3, even though. Yeah. At times I felt like I was watching like it almost felt like a soap, like the way that everything was framed in 4:3, it looked less cinematic to me.
Yeah. I agree.
It just felt almost like it felt like an old like sitcom, like it felt like I was watching like a soap opera.
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's clearly places. I mean, whenever they go into this, they make movies and there's like, okay, we're going to shoot this in IMAX. We're going to shoot this in whatever. And sometimes, he didn't shoot that movie with IMAX cameras. He shot it with like 35 millimeter full frame. So whenever, typically when you process or whatever, you mask out what you're going to do, but you have that whole film there that you printed on, but you don't never use the whole thing. Yeah. Because you're framing a certain way. I feel like some of the shots were framed for IMAX. Like this is an IMAX sequence. And then I feel like there's a lot of them, most of them, where there's just dead space above and below. No. And it makes the characters, to me, feel smaller in the frame.
Yes. And
also, here's the big thing is that I swear, because I've seen Josstice League a lot, there's moments I need to go back and look. I'm like, he cropped in. Like, that wasn't supposed to be 4:3. Yeah. Like, he moved the camera around. Like, he moved the frame around inside the 4:3. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's to make it whatever. Yeah. And you can really and you can really tell with a nightmare sequence, because now he is shooting the sequence with the idea that he knows that it's going to be 4:3. So he's trying to frame 4:3. So the framing is different because he's thinking 4:3 framing, but Fabian Wagner was thinking 185, 133 or whatever it was.
No, yeah. Like, I wish I could just zoom it in and watch it again, but just artificially frame it in like
I've legit thought about getting it and then 241 in it and cutting out about 30 minutes
Like do our own like fan cut.
I'm dead serious. I bet I could
Do it.
cut out 30 minutes of it.
I bet you could do a really good fan cut of that.
Yeah, and then make it 2-for-1 or even 185 or something. And I bet people would really like it. I think it'd be cool.
Except Zach wouldn't actually. I think Zach would maybe not like it.
Clearly wouldn't like it. I don't blame him, but I mean, maybe take it as a form of flattery. You know, I'm taking your art and making something else out of it
and making it better.
It probably would be a little cleaner. You know, the hard part would obviously be taking out like music cues. That's the hardest thing. Is
some
like
of the
bridging.
there's some things you wouldn't be able to take out.
Well, there's some things
that you would want to.
I think you could. I think you could do some things because he does some really bad cuts and on certain things.
They're mostly pretty clean. I feel like.
Yeah.
Like you could just chop things out and it would just flow to the next.
What do you think about the nightmare sequence?
Yes, that's what I want to get to, and that specifically that Joker scene, because
and we get 2 of them. Keep in mind, 2 nightmare sequences.
Yes, the first one, which took me completely off guard, was with Cyborg's nightmare sequence one. I didn't expect it at all when he did the mother box thing. I thought it was really cool though. I guess it was just like the mother box showing him the future. I'm not sure exactly why Cyborg can see in the future. I'm not even sure why Bruce Wayne can dream the future. I don't really know, but they can, and we're just accepting it because it's high fantasy world. That's fine. So I really enjoyed the first one. I loved that he saw that and was almost going to try and stop them.
Yeah,
because of what he saw.
The artificial intelligence in the AI and the Krypton ship. She says the future has now been set in the present. She says that after they turn on Superman. Yeah, which is interesting. That's a weird thing to say. The future has now been set into the present. It's almost like he was plugged. He was because the thing was warning him not to do it. It's like he was plugged in, warning him not to do it. It's like they was like almost tied together, like it was seeing the future. You can argue
but I also feel like that, like it's warning him not to do it. What's the other option? Superman stays dead. They, Darkseid comes anyway. How are they going to beat Darkseid without Superman anyway? You know what I mean? Like
at that point, you would argue that the Krypton ship is only plugged into what it's seeing. It's not seeing the future. You know what I'm saying? It's being shown. It's being shown what Cyborg is seeing, X, Y, and Z. It can't predict the future.
Right.
Again, we're movie logic it, but I mean, one thing I didn't like in the nightmare sequence in the Krypton ship is I didn't like they repurposed the Man of Steel shot for Superman. Whenever he's on his when he's on his knees and Lois's skeleton is in his laps.
Oh yeah.
And then
is that when Darkseid puts his hand on his shoulder?
That's just whenever he snaps Zod's neck and he's laying there and he screams out. That's all that is. They just cut him out. And it looks like they cut him out. And it's like clearly this wasn't framed for this. You just built the scene around him sitting there. I just think it looked like trash, personally. Yeah, no, I remember that CG not looking great. It was awesome seeing Darkseid shoot Omega beams, though. That was sick. That was cool. Right? Yeah. And then the end one was I really enjoyed the end one. I felt like that. I just love getting to visit that post-apocalyptic superhero world. I think it's just cool. And I love seeing these like superheroes like hiding from Superman. Like that just feels really cool and like just fun and interesting. Yeah. I think the dialogue was awful. I mean, Mara doing her little thing was awful. I can't remember what she does. She's like, you've never lost anyone X, Y, and Z. And it's like, things are so dire right now. Shut the fuck up. Like you've got a mission to do. That was stupid. Which then, all she said that was so for exposition to prep Joker to say, oh, he's lost somebody. Yeah, exactly. It felt like it was a setup line that didn't make sense other than to set it up. Yeah, it made no sense at all. And also, she has a English accent in this cut, and she doesn't in Josstice League. No, that was horrible. And she doesn't in Aquaman. No, so it's like it felt so weird. She feels like a different character in this too. Like how she acts feels 100%. She feels like this kind of regal character in this, where in the other one she kind of felt like not that. She's not a great actress. No, but then the Joker conversation. Got to get to that. I'm interested in what you thought.
because you're being more of the familiar with comics more than I am.
I mean, I think that this obviously, and when I watch Suicide Squad, I'm fascinated by watching Jared's scenes because they're so not what I would do with the Joker. And to me, it's just like, I mean, there's like probably like a glimmer. I'm like, oh, that's the Joker in like one shot in Suicide Squad. But most of it, I'm like, God dang, this is bad direction. And I think Jared Leto's an amazing actor. Because
even after watching what was that movie we reviewed too recently? Little Things.
He's a good actor in that movie.
Yeah, he's a good creepy psycho Joker-esque character almost. Like
I think this is absolutely if there was any redemption for him, it is this scene. He is more like, he's much better Joker in this. He doesn't have the stupid fucking damage tattoo on his head.
Oh my God, yeah.
All this other things. He looks much better. I don't, I like what he says. I like watching it. I love just seeing Ben back in the bat suit. You can tell he's a lot thinner.
I did not understand why he was alive. Why did they keep him alive? Why were they bringing him with him?
We talked. Well, I mean, clearly it seems like every man is useful. Is the point in that to me? Is because Deathstroke says it wasn't worth bringing him along. Like we're using every man we can't. It don't matter. Deathstroke's there. And
but he's like in handcuffs, right?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, he wasn't? Okay.
No, he had a gun. He's holding a gun.
Okay.
But that's that. I mean, the whole thing was there is just because Zach wanted them to meet. Again, having Batman drop an F-bomb, part of you is like, oh, that's kind of cool. But other part of you is like, it's just because Zach thought it would be cool.
It's just cheap. It feels cheap.
That's what I'm saying. The dialogue is not good.
And like I made no mistake, I will fucking kill you.
Yeah, I'm going to kill you, and make no mistake, I am going to fucking kill you. It's just like,
and I just wish it's like Batman kills people. We know this. That's not surprising.
Yeah. Again,
why haven't you already? Again, why didn't you do this before the end of the world or whatever?
Yeah, and I almost felt like it was implying that Joker was like, you're going to have to cross your line or something, and I'm just like, he crossed it. There is no line anymore.
No, there's no line. He erased the line. Yeah.
He
tap danced right over that shit.
And that would have been way more impactful again if he said, I will fucking kill you. If he said that, and again, we have seen a Batman the whole time who hasn't killed anybody, and you're like, oh, we're in the nightmare sequence, he's gonna kill the Joker. That's awesome. Like, that's cool. That would have been cool.
That would have been awesome. It would have been cool if he lost his cool and tried to kill the Joker, and that's what alerted Superman.
Yeah, the Joker's laughing and he's choking him. That would have been see, look at that. Look at you making better stuff for free.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what kills me is that this stuff isn't fucking hard. And the thing is they put their trust in a singular man who, in my opinion, just doesn't completely grasp the character he's working with.
No, exactly. That's what it feels like. It feels like he just doesn't quite get it. And that's okay. But
it is okay. Not everyone is us.
He's not.
Fine.
It's like people want to I feel like they tried to give him similar. They tried to almost make him a Kevin Feige with the DCEU. This kind of constant force that connects things and make like this through line that helps things connect and builds to each other and I mean, he was
handpicked by Nolan to direct Man of Steel. And then you got, I'm saying he makes that. They're like, hey, let's do BVS. And then they want to replicate Marvel. And then people have a bad reaction to BVS. And then you get Justice League. And then for some reason, they just get terrified of that movie. But you ask yourself, even if that movie was 3 hours long, who in the world thought it was fucking better to release, the Josstice League version? You don't know.
Yeah. It's true.
I will say,
now, do we know? Have we gotten any numbers? Has HBO said anything?
We don't know that. This? Before we get into that, one more thing. What do you think about Martian Manhunter?
It was the stupidest shit ever. It didn't matter. Like that scene with Lois, I was like, "What the fuck? Why is Martian Manhunter concerned?"
Our brother watched
with
it with
Lois not being a reporter right now or something. It's like. Yeah. The world needs more reporter. I mean, Lois.
Yeah.
It just felt so forced.
Harry Lennox, which is that character, he and Lois have a strong relationship, and it seems like he's trying to get her back in the world. But then you're like, well, Martian Manhunter. First of all, it makes that Lois and Martha scene. Martha is saying all these really things that kind of add to her character, and you're like, wait a minute, it's not Martha saying that at all. It's Martian Manhunter.
Exactly, and like she's talking like he knows Clark as a mom, or like this thing, and then it just feels like Martian Manhunter, you're kind of a creepy ass dude if you're doing this. Like,
yeah, and then he at the very end, that was reshot, of course, with Ben Affleck, and you can tell it's September 2020.
He looks
Ben Affleck,
lot young, like
he looks he looks healthier than he has been the last year or two.
No,
but he has obviously lost muscle mass, and he's obviously older. So he's a lot more thinner look to him. Yes. I liked what he said about being proud of his parents. I enjoyed that. But then he's like, also, some people call me the Martian Manhunter.
That was so stupid.
But here's the worst part almost. I have a stake in this world, and it's time I start fighting for it. And it's like, you know what? Where were you when where Zod was?
So many things. You were there. No, you were actually there around when Zod was there. You were just being a general instead of using your powers.
Yeah, and it's like if he's that strong, if the world's being destroyed, why would he not step in when Zod's trying to terraform the planet?
Yes. And also, why didn't Batman immediately say, "So are you from Mars?" Or like let's clarify that.
I kind of like Ben's like, all right, kind of like I've got too much shit to deal with, and like I've too many people around, and like I thought that I kind of like that actually. But
I do feel like that illustrated a perfect comparison with Marvel, with WandaVision. Marvel takes 4 movies and a 9-episode series to give Wanda the name Scarlet Witch. They take that much time to do it and build it and earn it. And then this is what the DCU. Hey, I'm Martian Manhunter. See ya.
It's this. Also, some people have called me the Martian Manhunter.
So what's your name? Do you like that name, or like what's going on?
His name is John Jones, is what his name is.
Yeah, but what's his Martian name?
John Jones. That's his Martian.
That's stupid.
That's his name, John Jones.
That Martians just are named the same as humans. That feels stupid.
You got to keep in mind these characters were made in the 50s and 60s, or 40s, 50s, 60s.
True, but surely they can find a more interesting way to justify it.
It would spell Jonz, like it's spelled like a different way. Like it's
okay.
It's not like a human John Jones. But anyway, no, I mean. I like the sentiment of he brings up his parents and he's just like, I hope so. Like it was just kind of like, it felt more also again like Bruce has come back. Like that felt more of a better closure for Bruce of like, he's
back in this.
And if that was the last time we saw him, then I would have been okay with that. And we're going to get him in Flashpoint, so that's good. That feels good.
I'm really interested to see how they do that. Like, what are they? I wonder that in going forward, like kind of like talking about what's next, what's the possibility of what's next, is I think there's a way they could use Flashpoint to be the sequel to this, and be its own and still be Flashpoint. They could find a way to use Flashpoint to feel like we're getting closure on some of these ideas that are put out there. Because I'm guessing if it's Bruce Wayne, if it's Flashpoint, we're going to be in the nightmare sequence a lot, right?
No, I mean, you got to understand. Zach has said this multiple times in the last week, and there's another thing you probably don't know. I'm fixing to drop on you.
Oh,
but Zach has said multiple times that during all these interviews, everyone keeps saying, what do you think about Restore the Snyder first? What do you think about making sequels? And he keeps not saying no. He keeps saying, well, I thought it was less likely that we would make this movie, even more so than making a sequel, and yet this movie happened, so who knows? But he said, but Warner Brothers was very clear with me that their Josstice League is the canon version. You can make this as long as you accept that Josstice League is canon to our timeline. So sure. Josstice League is still canon. As of
there's
right
nightmare
now.
Sequence in that. I mean, theoretically, it could.
There is in BVS technically.
Oh,
and not in Josstice League. There is no nightmare in Josstice League. There's no dark side in Justice League. There's no decide.
Yeah, I do know that.
There's no a lot of things.
Well, that sucks.
And so listen to this. So Flashpoint is clearly a way of going back and we get to
fixing their fuck ups. Yes.
It's going to reboot the timeline, or it's
Yes.
going to say this is the new canon X, Y, and Z, which I'm very much excited for. Hopefully they'll have a unified vision.
Maybe it even makes Zack Snyder's canon, like they use it to make it.
I mean, it's canon by proxy of it's in a different multiverse. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, right.
I could see a world where maybe they reboot it and then we have Robert Pattinson Batman is in the new timeline. We have our new Superman, our Black Superman in the new timeline. Shazam stays, Black Adam stays, Wonder Woman stays, Aquaman stays. But then you have Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill on HBO Max. Part of me says, here's why every day now, I don't think we're going to get anything on HBO Max, because her name's Ann something. She's an executive at Warner Brothers. She came out yesterday on Variety, a Variety piece.
Oh, I think I saw this. Yeah.
And you got to know
I saw the headline.
They made this article days ago, but they waited 5 days after Zack Snyder's Justice League to drop it. And basically it says, hey, we're glad Zack got to do his vision, and we can't let I'm paraphrasing, a small portion of the fans dictate our plans that we have set in motion, and we hope that they enjoy our plans set in motion, and we have a plan, and it's going to happen, and we're working on it. But she said Zack got to complete his trilogy, and we basically wish him the best of luck.
So and we're breaking up officially now.
Yep, this is it. Like basically saying, hey, fans, we gave you this and X, Y, and Z, but we're going to go chart our own course, and I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it as long as their course is good.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you got to be optimistic in that way. But I mean,
I'm not though. I don't have a reason to be.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like, would I like to see Ben Affleck get his own Batman movie or HBO Max show? Yeah, give it to me. I'll still take it today. But I can't deny that the most excited movie I'm for now is the Batman with Robert Pattinson.
Oh, 100%.
Because it looks fucking sick. You know what I'm
It
saying?
does. You're right.
Now, I do. It's like, it's such a weird thing. I do want Henry Cavill back as Superman, because I feel like we never got an actual Superman movie with him. And I would love to see Batman, Bruce Wayne with Ben Affleck. It's very complicated.
It is.
So I'm curious to see what will happen. I don't know. Well,
yeah, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of.
I bet in DC fandom and this coming fall, which we'll cover again, I bet we'll get a lot more direction, especially when Flash has been shooting. And they'll here's what I want. I really want a timeline like graphic released. I really want like
Marvel's phase timeline thing they do.
Yeah, I really want, here's this, and then here's our new timeline, and here's what fits into that.
Right.
That's what I really want, and I think that'd be really cool.
Be great.
I'll say that here's the last thing I kind of want to say, unless there's other things. Is there anything you want to touch upon we didn't touch upon?
I don't think so.
The last thing I want to say is this: is that this kind of touches again about growing up superhero movies and X, Y, and Z. I'm here for it all the time, every day, no matter what. I'm going to watch it, good or bad. I ultimately, at the end of the day, think that if a 10-year-old can't watch a Superman movie, then it's not much of a Superman movie.
Yeah.
If a 10-year-old can't watch a Superman movie, it's not much of a Superman movie. What are you doing? Or you haven't figured out Superman yet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of my ultimate thesis on this universe,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm looking forward to the future, and I'm glad we got the Snyder Cut, and I'm going to watch it until the day I die. I will, just because that's how I am. If you enjoy Snyder stuff, you're going to enjoy this, and if you don't enjoy it, then you're probably going to hate it even more. But I think that just like I said with The Dark Knight when we reviewed that and broke it down, the best is still yet to come. You know what I'm saying? We have not got the Justice League movie that we deserve yet.
Right. No, I mean that's exactly right. We talk about all the time with Marvel of we're afraid they'll never be able to top Endgame, Infinity War. Kind of like they just nailed it. So like you watch those and you're like, yeah, I don't know how you do better than that. Kind of like that may be the best version of Avengers we ever get. That may be the best version of superhero movies that exists for the entire existence of humanity or something.
Possible, yeah.
You know what I mean?
At least for team up movies.
It's probably not. Yeah, probably eventually something will eclipse it, but I don't feel like it feels like we're galaxies away from being there on anything on the DC side besides like maybe Nolan's Batman movies. Like those still I think are at an echelon similar to the Marvels.
They're just made at a high level and they're entertaining, you know.
And they're just it's made by a really talented and maybe team, one of our generation's most real auteurs is in Nolan.
Yeah. Whether you like him or not, he is talented. You know, you got to give the man credit.
And to be fair, I still think we haven't broken down enough, but I know we reviewed it once, but the more I get away from Tenet, the more I feel like it was his first real big misstep.
I really like it still. I think it's got issues, of course, but I still enjoy it. And part of that could be pandemic. Like I'm thirsty for it. But I think I appreciate the balls of it in some ways. And there's things about it you don't get in other movies anymore that I appreciate. Sure. But there is definitely issues in it 100%.
Yeah.
Sure. Whenever you have to have a podcast to me about, when you have two guys on a podcast trying to talk about it and they can't talk about it very well, that's an issue, in my opinion, for any movie. Yeah. But you know, again, Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's not the end all be all. There's the best is yet to come.
Yeah.
And I look forward to that day when we get to bask in the glow of like, you know, like once they like there's some good music cues in this and some good scores, but was there a moment in the movie that you were just like it swelled up in you and like, you know, I got emotional a couple times, sure, but like there was not a single moment where the Hulk, like that equivalent to the Hulk, like I'm always angry in Avengers 1. That never happened.
Thor coming to Wakanda in Infinity War or the circles, obviously in Endgame. There's nothing that hypes me like that. That where I'm like,
some people are saying it's the biggest blockbuster, like it's like the biggest superhero movie, like bigger than Endgame. People have said that. I've seen this.
How are they quantifying bigger?
They're not, but I'm saying like
okay, so they're idiots. Yes, okay.
I'm saying like it blows my mind. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like I don't understand.
Yeah, no, it's like it's that meme with the guy. It's like,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Question marks flying everywhere.
Yes.
Anyway, Daniel, how can our listeners write into us?
You can write into bit.ly/241mail. That's bit.ly/241mail. I'd love to know what you thought about the Snyder Cut if you watched it. Do you agree with our assessments? Do you agree with the slow motion stupidness? Etc. I would just love to hear your thoughts. Love to get your reactions. Where do you think it should go next? You know, do you feel like Zach deserves the keys again? Do you wish he would? I feel like I'm sitting here now kind of like, I kind of do.
I mean, I want to see it just because like I hate cliffhangers. I hate feeling unresolved. But
and
also
I feel
like
there would still be some really cool shit in those movies that he was going to make. Sure. But at the same time, it's like, but I am way more wanting the Robert Pattinson Batman. Like that to me feels like the next like real step in evolving Batman movies, kind of like and portraying Batman on screen in a new way. So yeah, let us know. bit.ly/241mail.
And if you haven't already, again, I implore you to go to the YouTube channel, YouTube.com/2for1 Studios. There you can subscribe to the channel. You can leave a comment if you can't find our bit.ly, and we will 100% get back to you either way. And of course, again, next week we are talking The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the first 2 episodes, actual superhero content. And just kidding, guys, for all you haters out there. And we'll have our good friend and number 1 fan, Joe Williams, on to talk with us. King of the fans. And he's a top-rated fan on Facebook for 2-for-1 Studios.
Yeah, no, that says it all. I don't think legit. We need anything to say else. That speaks volumes.
I don't know why we don't have Joe. I don't know why we don't have a 2-for-1 fake account that basically like a fan account, like that. Just
can we make one for you? We'll give you the login information for it.
Yeah. Anyway, I enjoy talking about it. This is one of those. It's weird because I feel like I could. There's so much I want to talk about because it's such a big movie, but at the same time, it's almost like it'd be too much, too long, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more going in the future for other things.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is going to be a reference point for superhero movies in the future, good or bad.
It will. I gotta say this real quick. I'm sorry, I'm thinking.
Go ahead.
The continuity is crazy because there's no continuity at all. I don't know if you know this, and I'm going to spoil this for you, but in Wonder Woman 1984, Wonder Woman learns how to fly in that movie. She can fly in that movie by the end of it.
I thought she had the invisible jet.
She does have the invisible jet. But
where does that come from in the comics? Is that from Amazon?
I don't honestly remember or know, but she has different iterations. She has had the ability to fly, but they give her that ability in Wonder Woman 84. So then you're like, okay, so you can fly in that, but then you can't fly in Josstice League,
jumping around,
and you can't also fly in Zack Snyder because this was made much later, and they're retconning things. Anyway, it's just like they got to have a Flashpoint thing to fix this, and And what's going to frustrate me is if they make a Flashpoint movie and then he comes back and it's like, everything matters. There's multiple timelines. I was like, I just want one timeline. I want one timeline.
Yeah, exactly. You want it to be consistent.
I want the Marvel universe, but with DC. Yeah. I
mean, it's very possible that Disney could someday own DC. I would not be surprised, to be honest.
It would blow my mind. I don't want that, honestly. I
don't either. I think that would be bad for Marvel and DC. But
I think it'd just be bad for business, for the industry.
Be bad for fans, yes.
Yeah, and just for filmmakers. Anyway, my name is Donovan Thompson.
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
And we have spoken.